8:42 now at KFBK. So the president spoke earlier this morning from Sweden, where he is right now meeting with the prime minister there as he makes his way to Russia for the G20 summit. The president's call for missile strikes against Syria goes before a House panel today. Meantime, the president does want congressional authorization for a limited military operation after more than 1,000 people were killed in that suspected chemical weapons attack, including many children. About 400 children is the last report. Secretary of State John Kerry and Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel testifying in today's hearing of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. But joining me now in the studio with his thoughts on whether we should have military strikes in Syria is California's 10th District Congressman, Republican Jeff Denham. Good morning, sir. Thanks for coming on with us.
Amy, thanks for having me back.
Really appreciate you stopping in this morning. So you're here to meet with your constituents in your district and talk about issues very important to them.
Absolutely.
But I really appreciate you coming in to talk about what you think should happen in Syria, specifically because you have a vast military background. And so I'm wondering if you think that do you agree with the president that we should have limited military strikes?
I don't. I think the president has a lot of explaining to do, not only to Congress, but to the American public on what is the American interest here. While this is a huge tragedy, we really have to define what we're protecting as Americans, or what our strategic interest is, and what do we expect to get out of this? At the end of the day, we're going to spend $1 billion, a huge airstrike targeted. What does the country look like when we're all done? Do we have more friends? Do we have allies that are in this with us? Do we have an exit strategy? I mean, there are a lot of unanswered questions, including the strike itself, the strategy behind the strike. Where are we going to launch these missiles from? Are we going through Lebanon's airspace, Israel's airspace? Are they going to allow us to do that? So we've got a lot of questions to ask. I'm going back to Washington tomorrow. We'll have another briefing on it on Friday. But I think the president really needs to make the case not only to Congress, but more importantly to the American public on why we would actually engage in something like this when we haven't engaged on other issues. Benghazi, Americans were killed on American soil. We certainly had an interest there that this president has not followed up on.
Well, let's stick specifically with Syria right now, because, of course, the question, too, for a lot of Americans, and we had a couple of polls done that, we're just very war-weary, and we don't want to get involved, even though we are the world power and need to make sure that human rights are treasured and, people are protected. But this 60 days with a possible 30-day extension, no boots on the ground, is your fear, like a lot of other Americans' fear, is that eventually that would change to be longer and would eventually involve boots on the ground?
Absolutely. And I don't think the Secretary Kerry was real clear on boots on the ground yesterday. He kind of went around the subject quite a few times. And I don't think anybody can guarantee that wouldn't happen. 60 days from now, we have no idea what that outcome would be and whether or not we would be entrenched to put boots on the ground. And again, who are our allies in this as well?
So we have a little bit of time left. So quickly, do you think that Congress will authorize the military strike?
I don't. I have a hard time finding where they're going to get members on the left as well as members on the right that would agree to such a thing.
And if Congress does not, and he does an executive order, thoughts?
Again, I think the right thing for him to do was to come to Congress, but if there's no congressional approval, he is conducting an act of war without having an American interest at stake.
Congressman Jeff Denham, a Republican from our 10th District. We do appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much, and you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Jeff.